correcting him, the maximum projected population for the islands, if fully developed, was 22,000 people. 22,000 on the 7,000 we've got now. That's for the 4 islands. Okay, the next question we want to talk about is economic development. And look, Redland Council has tried to plan. There have been many, many studies, and we have a representative from Redland Council here who probably has all of them in his cabinets. There are many studies that have been done for the islands, but very little gets progressed. Some things happen for sure, but really, for most of it, we need support from the state and federal levels to be successful. We need a commitment for action, especially at the state government. That's what we're asking you for. Many major cities in the world have islands nearby which are prosperous, well-connected, provide a sought-after lifestyle, but that's not the case for the SMBI. Many of our businesses, which are essential to sustainability of the population and to tourism, are marginal. Many of them fail. Property prices are low, and together with transport costs, this is encouraging unbalanced demographic income profiles and restricting economic growth. So tourism, and especially water-based tourism, seems an obvious answer, but there are barriers such as lack of ocean beaches, limited boat ramps and jetty access, and limited on-island public transport. So we can't have water-based tourism without additional jetties and waterfront access at key locations. So perhaps some sort of combined effort may facilitate a new approach to economic development. If you were elected, what would you do to encourage economic growth on the islands and especially their tourism potential? Who is second? Go, Deb.
Tourism is a very interesting beast. It was my first career. It's one I quite enjoy being involved in. My first thesis was on the birth of tourism in Queensland. I called it Weaving the Dreamtime Tapestry because that was the name of the first video that was ever made to try and promote international tourism for Queensland. In 1969, tourism is a multifaceted beast. It isn't always the bringer of good things. It can bring a whole host of difficulties for you as well. However, just as in 1969 they saw tourism being the saviour of the Queensland economy, it's still being touted as a very successful industry for building economic prosperity. And indeed, the Pondamuka peoples have been talking with the Redland City Council and Griffith University in terms of trying to develop an Indigenous heritage trail around the southern Northern Bay Islands. That could be something quite unique and could be a very successful venture. However, it relies on quite a lot of community cooperation and support. There's also this, I used to be a boater once upon a time, and my previous experience with these islands was coming in by yacht. You can't get in here unless you swim shore from the yacht. Councillor Mark Edwards, who's down the back of the room at the start of the election campaign, asked me where I stood on recreational jetties for the islands and could I get a commitment from Labor in that regard. I have to say I haven't been able to get any commitments in that regard at this stage, but if we're going to develop something to do with tourism, as Nancy has outlined in that preamble she gave to the question, it's going to be fairly important to think about the recreational jetty side of things as well as the transport jetty side of things. Mark Edwards' ideas for those areas are being progressed as I understand it, but he needs the support of governments. He needs federal and state governments to come on board. Coming back to federal government level, we saw Mr Andrew Lamming, the federal member for Bowman, at the, I think it was October last year, when the federal government announced a grant fund for regional communities, saying he would access those grants to help people of these areas, the islands here, to get some infrastructure to support a bridge or whatever. And that started off the bridge debate for everybody for this election. Unfortunately, that grant doesn't cover those sorts of things which one would have thought Mr Lamming would know about, because he's a federal member and it was a federal grant. However, there are a whole host of grants that can be applied for by local councils, by community organisations, but not by state governments. But as your elected representative, I can work with you, the community, I can work with the council, I can work with the Southern Moreton Bay Islands Forum, I can work with the Combined Islands Association, I can work with the McLean Parish Association. We can make something happen if we work together and if we think about having a plan for where we want to go. Planning is difficult in government circles. We have a 3-year election cycle at 3 levels. But we can try hard. We can do better.
3 minutes and you never answered the question.
I'd have to say, just to preface my comments about business, is that I'm uncomfortable with the idea of 22,000 people populating these islands. I think it would be a case of spoiling the golden egg. I think these islands have immense opportunity for eco-based tourism, for other sustainable island-oriented activities. I see there's a growing cropping and market garden group. The more stuff you could grow on these islands, formerly there were a lot of farming on the islands. The cost of transport is a huge factor, as we all know, and certainly an issue on the mainland of how our prices have rocketed in the last 10, 15 years. I think there's an opportunity there to restrict growth. Now, it's very easy to say and hard to do, I accept that. But there are an awful lot of undeveloped blocks, and I think state government made the mistake in cutting these islands up into small blocks. Totally inappropriately. That mistake was made a long time ago. But unfortunately, it was made by state government. Right? I think that the future of these islands has got to be low impact. Population of 20,000 is high impact. Now, how you achieve that, it's hard to say. But certainly, tourism-based activities around the bay and the water, and if there are more jetties required, well, let's look at the feasibility and come out with an action plan to do that. I'm sure that those things would add to the present economic activity. The other thing that we would like to see is more jobs locally in Redlands. We'd like to see a university in Redlands and a TAFE, and those things would create jobs, and there's no reason why there couldn't be an annex to the university on Macleay or Russell Island for research and particularly for marine-based activity and science. So anyway, I've gone out, so thanks very much.
Okay, economic development. There's a lot of boat traffic goes past the islands, and me included, and there's nowhere to pull up and sort of canvass that before. But some jetty facilities, some finger jetties, perhaps an opportunity for boaties to refuel when they're coming past the islands on the water, rather than having to hike up the hill here with a jerry can. Might be little things, might be a big start on the islands, and there's lots of ideas that we can canvass with the go-kart system. You've got hundreds of thousands of people on the mainland that I'm sure would love to come to the islands if they only knew what was here. And those people, after 9 trips, are getting their 10th trip free, their 10th journey. So there's no reason why the islands couldn't encourage people to come to the islands for free. But then how do they get around when they get here? So there's, and where do they park if they drive to Wyman Creek? So there's infrastructure issues that are part and parcel of the problem of building tourism. But I think those things that collectively, if you want to build the tourism economy, we can put our collective intellectual power together and come up with solutions. We've got a fabulous arts community on Macleay Island, which my family are part of. We've got a wonderful environment community, or we've got a community which has really focused on the environment on Russell Island.
1 minute left.
We've got a lovely sandy beach down the bottom end. There's there's so much that these islands offer in a unique way that I think we can really promote to southeast Queensland, from boaties to art to environment, and we can really work to build local jobs here on the islands. And as soon as we do some incremental changes, we start building capacity on the islands and building job opportunities on the islands and building an economy on the islands. That's it. Thank you.
Developing tourism on the islands. When I started to do some research on the net, I found that the websites that were there were poor. And I think the way to get tourism up and running is you need good structures in your websites. I've travelled a lot around the world, and I've travelled a lot around Australia. When I start looking for somewhere that I particularly want to go, I start researching it. You want to start making people want to come here, not just from in Australia, but globally. You want to bring people into the tourism side of it. Have something to offer. Most of you think, well, what is there to offer? You don't have the nice beaches, but you have fishing. I like canoeing. You've got lots of beautiful places up and down the Knife Passage that can be utilised, that can be advertised. I noticed I also started looking into what camping grounds we had to offer for people to come and stay. Accommodation was limited. I noticed that Mr Edwards had put in for a caravan park or camping grounds. When I looked at this, and I think it was advertised through the Bayside Bulletin, they were given 2 sites, no more than 4 persons per site, and no more than a 3-day stay was the maximum. Well, there's 12 in my family, and when we go on holidays, we all go together. Obviously, this would not be an option for us. There wouldn't have been enough room. I think if you're going to do something like that, and you want to bring tourism here, then obviously you need to promote the island, and you need to promote it properly. Fishing. It's not all about beaches and sunbathing. You've got wildlife here, you've got birds. There's lots more to wander around and look at. We don't all have to, not everybody wants the party scene. It doesn't have to be a Gold Coast. It can be for the quieter people that want to come here and just enjoy the serenity. And that's the way I look at it. I think you need to promote your tourism that way. I know with the Palm United Party they are looking at giving incentives to people in business. And obviously if this is something you go into is promoting your tourism, promoting your islands, I'm sure there would be incentives there available as reductions, so you can therefore employ more people, create more opportunities for local people to work. Thank you.